One and all. I hope all of you have joined this session. So let us briefly come back to the previous session. Like on 23rd, we discussed about the cascading style sheets. So what is meant by a cascading style sheet and how it is useful in the HTML programming. Okay. Cascading style sheet is nothing but which provides the style to the HTML, which makes the pages look accordingly to our requirements as well as the client requirements. So now starting with the first slide, just go through a brief description like what we discussed in our previous class. So the CSS specification, it was developed in 1996 and CSS2 is the next version of it and CSS3 is the latest version currently we have. So we have a different versions of CSS here and which provides like presentation beautification to our HTML pages. So CSS is not technically HTML, means like HTML it does not have any specific tags, but it's like a properties which can apply on our HTML pages. So now coming to the next slide, we have discussed like we have three types of style sheets. That is internal style sheet or that is external style sheet and inline style sheet. Inline means within the tag itself we can write our piece of code, whereas document level style sheets or internal style sheets means in the head part of the HTML we can have the style tag defined and we can write our piece of code in a style tag. External style sheets means with the help of a link attribute we can get the external CSS files embedded into our HTMLs. So these are the three levels of style sheets that we have discussed in our previous class. Now coming to the levels of these are again the types, and with the help of the MIME type text/CSS we can define like what kind of page it is, whether it is a JavaScript or a CSS file or a HTML file kind of notation. Now this is a link attribute which I was discussing, like with the help of the link rel is equal to style sheet, it's a relation, and type is equal to text/CSS, and href is equal to whatever folder you have placed your .css file, you can embed into your HTML using this link rel is equal to style sheet. Okay, this is what you can use for embedding the style sheets into our page. So you can also validate the style sheets using the CSS validator and use the below link. Just coming to the next slide. This is the specification, like this is a notation how do you basically write your style. Okay, the property and value. Style is equal to, for inline style how do you write means p tag style is equal to property colon value. So in this way you can define the properties for your CSS classes. This is the notation for the internal style or document level style. You can write the style tag seen here in your head type. You have to define the style. Style tag is equal to text/CSS in your head portion of the HTML, and you have to write the piece of code or a styles in the style tags. And similar way in HTML, you can have a comments in a CSS using this notation. You can see here like slash, star and star slash. So this is a format for document level, and this is the general form which I have discussed. Style type is equal to text/CSS. Here you can write your piece of code. So when you go to the css.css file, you can write your dot selector, whatever the means. Selector means h1 h2 p tags. You can write h1 h2 h1 comma h2 for multiple styles. If you want only h1, you can write h1 and the list of braces here and list of the property or values. Mean you can separate the property and value using the colon. For example, background color colon red kind of thing, and each property value pair has a form property colon value. So this is called as a pair, key value pair kind of things. So now coming to the external style sheet. Just a second, I'm just checking my volume. So you have to follow all the external, internal, and the inline style sheets accordingly, so that you can render your page perfectly. So you can see here, these are the selector forms which I have discussed, like H1, H2, okay, H1, H3, P tag, and from H1 to H6 you can have any tag. You can write any style for the relative tags. But if you have a multiple H1s or H2s in your HTML pages, then what you have to do is you have to define a class name for each tag. So with the help of the class name, you can differentiate like what is the H1 tag and what is the H2 tag. Okay, H1 dot whatever the class you are giving that class name, and H3 dot whatever the class name you are preferring, you can check it. Now coming to the contextual selectors, you have OL, LI, you can have a UL also, unordered list or ordered list elements, as we discussed in our HTML part. You can have for all the LIs, if you want to have a common color, then you can give the LI selector. In within the braces you can give the color colon red, means for all the font colors it will change to red color. For example, if you want to have a colored in green and remaining LIs to be colored in red, in that case you can give the class name for the particular LI, or you can also give an ID for the particular LI based on the need, what you think. Like if you want the class to be repeated multiple times in a page, then you can give the class name. If you want only the if you want only the class name and that doesn't repeat, that should be unique, then in that case you can have an ID. Like here you can see the class selectors used to allow the different occurrences of the same tag to use the different style of specifications. So here you have a P called P tag which has a class called narrow, and P which has a class called wide. So for narrow you can define one particular style. Both are P tags. If you give only direct P selector and write the background color as red, all the P's in your page will change to red color. No, if you do not want like that kind of style, and you want only a specific color like green to the narrow class and white to the red class kind of things, you can have the classes defined in your page. Now coming to the generic selectors. Generic selectors means you have a 2 to 3 tags like H1P, span tag or div tag. For all the different selectors of your HTML, you want a same class to be applied. That may be H1 or P or any span or a div tag. Then you can have a class name. As you see here, a dot really big is a common class for the different types of tag here, and for this really big you can give any class, any style that can have a property value pair. Coming to the ID selector. So ID selector I have mentioned clearly, like it is a unique attribute which has a high preference. So in your page ID will have a high preference when compared to the classes. So if you give ID for one element, It should not be repeated to any other elements. This is the most important point that you have to follow in the cascading style sheets. So ID selector allow the application of the style. Okay, allow the application of style to one specific element. So in your page, you have only one header. You can have only one header in your HTML page. For those particular types of things, footer also you will have only one footer. You will not have a multiple headers and footer in a single HTML page. So in that case, you can use the ID kind of things, ID select as. Okay, here in the example, it is given like ID hash a selection 14 font size is equal to 20. For that particular ID, you have given it size as 20. So this ID, this selection 14 ID selector cannot be used in any other of the for any other of the tags. Whereas class is vice versa. You can use this class for any other tag. Now coming to the pseudo classes. So what is meant by a pseudo class? You need to understand the pseudo class in CSS. Okay. Pseudo class are the styles that apply when something happens. Okay. Pseudo classes are the styles that apply when something happens rather than because a target element simply exists. So when any action is performed. So these pseudo classes are this kind of styles. We need to explain, like name begins with a colon. For example, I have placed my mouse on any element, then the particular text of the element should be in a red color or a blue color, any kind of effect. You can have a shadow, you can have the element blinking. See, when an action is performed, when you hover the mouse on the element, then you can see like something is happened. So for those kind of classes, you will write like colon followed by the class name. Colon hover means when you hover on the element P colon hover. When you hover on a particular element, when you place your mouse on the P element, the color of the P element is changed. So P colon hover within the braces in CSS, you will write as color colon red. For the color, it will change to red. Its focus class apply when an element has a focus. For example, in your input tags, you see like when for filling a form in any of the institutes or any other sites, like not only e-commerce, various sites, banking sites, anything. When you can see the cursor blinking in one input box. That is the focus in that particular input. When the focus is left, we call it as a blur. So there are certain kinds of elements, like classes, you can observe in a next coming sessions. So focus means your focus, your cursor is blinking in one particular input tag kind of things. Okay. Now coming to the example of the pseudo classes. So here in your text you have written the head. In the head tag you have the title. Style tag, this is what kind of style it is, level of style sheet we have used here. You can observe style type is equal to text slash CSS we have written in a head. Now you can simply say like what kind of style we have followed. This is nothing but the document level, which we also call it as internal style sheet. Style type is equal to text slash CSS, and here you can observe input colon hover color red. So for the input elements, if you have given the colon hover property, if you hover on the particular input, then the color will change to red. Okay, hover means just we'll place the mouse. Focus means we have to click on the particular input tag, then the color will change to green. Here you can see the form action is equal to empty in the body tag. Action is equal to empty. If you have not specified any URL, it means that it is targeted to the current page only. It will not navigate to the other page on submission of the form. It will be in the same form itself. Okay. It's a best practice to use the action element whether it is navigated or not navigated. If it is not navigated, you should specify like empty tags. So your name, you can write your name in labels also. You can have the label tag here, which is nothing but you are telling it's a label. Okay, input type is equal to text and you have closed the tag. So for this type, input type is equal to text. When you hover on it, when you place your mouse, your color will be red. When you focus on it, when you click on it, then your color will be green. So now coming to the properties of the, there are like 60 different properties in 7 categories. Okay, we have 7 categories here: fonts, list, alignment of the text, margins, colors, background, and borders. Okay, these are the different properties that we can apply on our HTML elements. For example, I'm just giving an example of how the font behaves. Okay, font hyphen size means it helps to increase the font or decrease the font of your particular HTML element, or if you have applied the font size to the entire HTML, if you want to apply, then you should give the body. For the body, if you give the font, then automatically all the elements in your page will have the particular font size. It may be a background or anything. Okay, now coming to the list, we can have a different types of list like UL, OL, and LI. Okay, for this LI, you can observe like we got a dots for the unordered list, numbers for the ordered list. So in order to remove the numbers or the dots, you can specify the property like list style type is equal to none. So when you give the list style type colon none, then you can type like it may be number or a bullet points or anything, it will go off. You can simply have the text. So this example we will see in the coming slides. Next, alignment of the text. Example for the alignment of text is like you can have your text left align, center align, right align. These are like a properties. So align attribute, I hope you remember when you discussed in our table things. Table we have a V align, normal align also. Okay. Colors. So you can have a colors for the font, background colors, colors for the element. So you can have a different color properties. Now coming to the backgrounds, you can have a background image, you can have a background size attribute, you can have a background color attribute. So these are examples of the background. Borders. For borders, we can have the borders given to the tables or your text like border 1 pixel solid red means 1 pixel, solid dark line will be there with the width 1 pixel, and red means that can be a color. So this is the example of the border. Now coming to the property values. You can see here for not a case sensitive, you can see like keywords left, small. These are some of the keywords which we can use. For length, you can give it as an, so you can see the units here, pixels, inches, centimeters, mm, pt, picas, which is equivalent to the 12 points, em, height of the letter m. See, for the fonts, generally we use pixels or ems in a real time. Em means it will have like 1 pixel is equal to, if you take like 1 em is equal to 16 pixels, it is equivalent. So em is quite larger than when compared to the pixels. Ex height, and no space is allowed between the number and the unit specification. Okay. So these are the different units we can see here. The most frequently used units are pixels and EMs. We mostly use the pixels like font size is equal to 16 pixels, which is equivalent to 1 EM. If you have a bigger font size, you can go for a EM kind of notations. Now coming to the property value forms. So similarly as a pixels, you can give percentages to your page like body is equal to, body has a height and width is equal to some 250 pixels or 50% kind of things. For example, you have a width of 768 pixels, and if you want the entire page to occupy, if you want the page to be floating, like it should be like dynamic not fixed kind of thing. When you minimize it or maximize it, the font should change according to the page. Then you can give a percentage values, just a number immediately followed by a percentage sign, like 50%, 30% kind of things. URL values. For example, if you want to have a background image in your page for a particular p tag, if you want to give a background property which has an image, you can have the URL, and in the URL you can specify the path of the image. Color name, yeah, this you can have the different colors. You can have direct colors like red, green, or you can have the hash 6-digit hexadecimal properties, like you can see hash XXX and XXX, continuous 6 X's. You can give it as like D100 kind of. You have a hexadecimal forms, right? In that case also colors can be given, and in RGB colors also you can give like RGB of 1 to some 10. It specifies certain colors. Property values are inherited by all nested tags unless overridden. So these property values we can inherit by all the nested tags. You can have the properties, you can have the flower braces, and within that you can have the background URL and background image, background repeat. You have different properties, okay? For colors, you will be using RGB colors or hexadecimal colors or directly text like red, green, cyan kind of colors. Now coming to the font properties, font family. So for your page, you can have the font family like, see, for debugging, I have mentioned like you should press the F12 tab when you run your page, okay? When you run your HTML code, you can see the output in a browser. For that browser, when you click on a F12 button on your keyboard or right click and click on the inspect element, then you can see a tab which comes over, and within the tag, within the space, you can see the portion of code which I have shown you in the last class. On the right side, you can find all the CSS classes which you have used for writing the particular HTML code. When you see there, you can observe like font family will be there. Font family is nothing but for all the fonts you will define a family like Verdana, Arial. So these are kind of font families which we can specify for the entire page in the body, or for an individual set of elements like a div tags. Within the div tags you have H1, H2, and for only that particular div, if you want a font family and font color or any other properties, you can give the font family and respectively font sizes and all. So the value is a list of font names. Browser uses first in the list, it has font family, Arial, Helvetica, Courier. This is the syntax. You can see font family, Arial, Helvetica, Courier. It is not mandatory that you should use only 1, 2 or 3 styles like Arial, Helvetica, Courier. You can give even Arial, then it will automatically take the Arial. If Arial is not there, then it will take Helvetica as a second preference. If Helvetica is also not provided, it will take the Courier. Okay, if Courier is also not there, then whatever the browser's default font will be there, it will be applied to the HTML page. So you can see the generic fonts here, which mentioned here. Sans serif, serif, cursive, fantasy, and monospace. These are the like default fonts you can observe. These are the generic fonts of the browser. So it depends on the browser, each font family will behave. Now coming to the font size, font style, font weight. These are the different properties. These are the examples for the, as we have seen in the previous slides, there are 60 different properties for the 7 things like font, backgrounds, lists, etc. So in that, font is one of the thing we have. If a font name has more than one word, it should be single quoted. So font name. Font name, we have more than one word. The the style we have to follow is like it should be single quoted. Font size, possible values, a length, number or name such as smaller, XX, large. So for the font size, we can give like real time, we will give like 1 pixel, 2 pixel, till 16 pixels, 32 pixels also you can give. So based on the requirement, you will give the one particular font size. A length or a name such as you can give the a length, mean which can be a number like 1, 2, 3, like kind of things, or a name. Font size, small, large, kind of things. Font style, it can be like italic, normal. Oblique, we generally don't use it. Font style italic means we can have the text as italic style, normal, bold. We have certain font styles. When you write the CSS style and when you debug, when you write your HTML portion of code and when you see the output in a browser, and then press on the inspect element and observe on the right side. Left side you will have a HTML code. On right side you can have an element style where you can write your portion of code and check how it is reflecting in your HTML page. I mean without saving you can just debug it. When you write on a right side of your tab which opened up when you click on a inspect element. So you can write the italic style and observe how the italic style is appearing, how the bold is appearing. Okay. Could specify as a multiple of 100. Mean you can have, sorry, coming to the font weight, degrees of boldness. Font weight means you can have your font color to be appeared thicker, thinner, kind of things. For that you will use the property like font weight, degrees of boldness. It gives how many degrees you want to apply. It could be bolder, lighter, bold, normal as the text given here, as well as you can specify the number 100, 200, that is the range between 100 to 900. Now coming to the first specifying a list of font properties, you can give font. See, here you have to observe two kinds of notations for the font. One is shorthand property, one is longhand property. Shorthand property means you can have font colon and write all the things in the same line, or this is called shorthand property. Longhand property means you can have the font size separately, font style. You can have n number of lines like font style separately, font weight. This increases the number of CSS lines in your page. In real time, we generally don't use the longhand, like we don't specify it differently. We will mostly have the shorthand properties only, like font within the font. First thing, bolder means font weight. Next comes the font size. Next comes the font style. So this is the shorthand property. With the help of one line of CSS code, we try to embed all the properties of the CSS font. So this is the best practice generally we follow in a real-time development. Order must be style, weight, size, names. Okay, this must be the order. Now coming to the font properties. We have certain properties like, I'll show you the examples further. Before that, let us go through all the theory things. Text decoration property. We can have the text decoration property for the fonts. Text decoration property has certain values like, see, you have a property values pair, right? For the property, you have the text decoration. For the value, you can write line through, overline, underline, none. For example, if you want the font to be underlined, then you will give text decoration as underline. For anchor tag, you will default get the underline tag for your text. And if you want to remove the default underline which you got for the anchor tag, then you can give the text decoration as none. Okay, kind of things. These are the different properties. Letter spacing value is any length property value. You can give like how much letter spacing you want. So you can go through each and every property. My suggestion is like go to the home and practice on each and every attribute. Then you can remember it for a long duration. I mean, if you learn it, you'll have the things for a short span. So practice it well. then you can remember like value like importance of each and every tag, and you can quickly write the things which are necessary, which are required for a project or anything. So practice must be there for the HTML CSS. List properties. So I have explained you like list style type. List style type means by default the UL tags has the bullet kind of notations for the LI elements. If you want to remove the bullet points, you can give the list style type is equal to none. If you want the Roman numbers to be given or any square or any other kind of styles, like you can see in the example, UL style is equal to list style type is equal to square, then you can get a square kind of representation before your LI elements. Now coming to the list properties. On the LI, list style type applies to just that item. H3 some common C. You can have for unordered list, if you have given for the entire unordered list, you want the list style type as square. For all the elements in common, then you can specify as in our previous slide here. Beside the UL, you can write the style. No, if you do not want that thing, and if you want to have a different style, list style type for different LIs, then before that LI you can write style is equal to list style type is colon disk, colon square, colon circle. Okay, then you can have required. So always remember, it is a best practice to define your styles in an head tag or external style sheet. Never use these kind of inline styles in the real-time development. Okay, you can have all your things done like in your practicing or anything, you can have the inline styles, but the best practice in real-time projects is like you have to define the inline style, you have to define the styles in an external style sheet, or next first comes the external style sheet best practice, next comes the internal style sheet or document level. But generally do not use the inline styles in a real-time development because it takes the highest preference. So when you write any other, when you write the external style sheets, they may get overridden. So it's a best practice to use the external style sheet generally. Okay. I'm just reloading the document again because it is loading very slowly. Okay. Now coming to the list properties again, it's a continuation. Could use an image for the bullets in an unordered list. So for unordered list, you can have the list style image also. List style type means square, bullet, circles, etc. You have seen, right? In the similar way, we can have the images also for your list elements. See here, this is a notation if you can see. Li style is equal to list style image. This is the URL. Within the URL, you can give your local folder or any other thing like HTTP colon, or it's an external thing. Bird.jpg. For this particular LI, you can have the image like this image. So, or for ordered list elements, you can have the sequence type, property value. Okay, this is the things you can have different things: numbers, capital alphabet letters, small alphabet letters, Roman numbers. You can have upper Roman, lower alpha, upper alpha, and decimals. Okay. Now coming to the color. Color is a problem for the web for two reasons. Monitors vary widely, browsers vary widely. So colors, it differs based on the browsers and also the monitors you generally use. So there are three color collections. You can have, there is 16 set of 16 colors that are guaranteed to be displayed by all the graphical color monitors. So all kind of monitors like what are guaranteed set of 16 colors they have provided here, mentioned here. You can download this PPT. I have enabled for the download. See here, these are all the 16 colors which we can guarantee on all kind of monitors. It can be similar in all kind of monitors for the display purpose. Black, this is the hexadecimal notation which I have specified. For writing hexadecimal in CSS, you should write like color colon hash particular thing 0000000 6 zeros. If you give Fs, we will get white color. 6 zeros, black color. For silver, similarly, you have this thing, and these are the for different types of colors, commonly used colors for all kind of monitors. There is much larger set, the web palette, 216 colors. You can have an RGB colors also. You can use the hex colors of like 003399 set only to one single element. So the background property specifies the background color of the element. So the background property, you can have the background color. This is a property, braces, background hyphen color, colon red. For background, you can have the background color property. Alignment of the text. In your HTML, you can align the text. Like you can specify the text indent property allows the indentation takes either a length or a percentage value. You can give either a percentage or some pixels or anything you can give. Text indent from the starting position of the page. See, for example, if your text, take the PPT as an example, you can see some space between the outline of the PPT and the bullet point. So you have some indent here. This is nothing but the text indent. So text align property means you can have your text aligned center, left, right, or justify. Justify to according to your page. So sometimes we want the text to flow around another element, the float property. So this is one of the important property that you often use in your developing the HTML to define any style. This we call as a float property. Float has a possible value left, right, none. Okay. For example, if you have two elements, for your entire page, if you want one element to be in the left side of the page and another element to be in the right side of the page, then you give float colon left for left element, float colon right for the right element. If you do not want any floats, you can just give it as a none if it already has a float. Similarly, the text align attribute. Alignment of the text. Image SR is equal to, in the source you have given one link for an image and style is equal to float right. For example, you can see the some text with the default element. We will have always a default alignment as left, and this is a picture of the some Sienna 210. So is the output you can see here. So you have all the text on the left side and you have given a float as right for the image as you seen above. Okay. What happened? Your image is on the right side of your page. So this is one of the example for the float right. Just reloading the document. So for float, we have different properties like float left, float right, and float none. So based on the requirement, you can define all the elements on either left side or on either right side. It depends. Now coming to the next topic, box model. So box model, float concept, these two things are most frequently used things in real time. So box model means the borders, every element has a border style property. The border style, it can be a solid line, it can be a dotted line, or it can be a double line kind of things. For the border property, you can give the border style attribute and the values will dash and double. So controls whether the element has a border. have a different borders, border style none, dotted, dashed and double. Border width thin. You can have the border width as thin, medium, thick or a length value in pixels. You can define the border width as 1 pixel, 2 pixel. The notation will be border hyphen width colon 1 pixel, 2 pixel kind of things, or medium, thick. Border style, you can have border style colon none, dotted, dash, double. For border style, you do not have any numbers, numericals, but for border width, you will have a numericals. Border width can be specified for any one of the four borders. For example, as we have discussed, we have two kinds of notations like shorthand notation and longhand notation. Shorthand notation means for border, you can have a top border, right border, bottom border and left border. The order will always goes from top, right, bottom and left. You should remember while writing a shorthand property. For example, if you want a top width as 1 pixel, right as 2 pixel, bottom as 3 pixel and left as 4 pixel. You can define the border colon, you can have the different properties like this 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels, or else you can have only one item specified like border top width 2 pixels. For the four borders of a square, you can have a top as 5 pixels separately. Now border color. Border color you can give anything, RGB color or hexa color or red, white, text color, anything. Border color can be specified for any of the four borders. It is also similarly like border width. You can have a four colors, border top color, border right color, border bottom color and border left color. Here you can see this is one of the important property that you should remember, which we called it as margin, the space between the border of an element and its neighbor element. Okay, border, the space between border of the element. Here in the output, you can see there is a border for the output. This is a picture of a kind of text and there is an image, right? And on top, and it is wrapped by a border. So the space between the border and the text. Okay, this is, we call it as the margin. We call the margin. You can have the different properties like margin around an element can be set like margin left, margin right, margin top, margin bottom. For shorthand, you will have margin colon top, right value, bottom value, and left value. Excuse me. And you can have the notation like margin left 0.35 inches. So here units you can recollect like we have different units, pixels, EMs, inches, centimeters, etc. So you can give any kind of thing 0.35 inches. Image SRC is equal to the image path. Style is equal to float right. Again for the image you have given the style as right and you have given a margin left and margin bottom. You can observe like margin, you have a left margin here and bottom here. There is a space between the content and the border. Whatever the content is there, this is a picture. This is a picture of Sienna. This is the content, okay, and the border. The space between the content and the border is called as a margin. Okay, remember this line. I'm repeating again. The space between the content and the border. Please note down the space between the border and the content. We call it as margin. In a box model, first we discussed about the border, then margin. Margin is nothing but the space between the border and the content. Next comes the padding attribute. So in box model we discussed about border, margin and now padding. The difference between margin and padding, please do not get confused. The space between the border and the content is called as a margin. Okay. Now coming to padding. Padding, the distance between the content of an element and its border is controlled by padding. Okay. I am trying to share my desktop. I hope you all can see the screen here. HTML, XML namespace. You can see like, so in the style you have written P with class as 1. For that you have given margin, padding, background color, border style. Again for different another P you have given margin, padding, background color, border style. So you have 5 classes and this is the code. I will run it and I will show you like how it appears. See here. You can see like now this is time for all good web programmers to learn to use the style sheets. Margin is equal to 0.2, margin padding is equal to 0.2. Here you can see the space between this Internet Explorer browser is there, right? Here this is the first line text you can see here, right? This is the border of the IE, okay? So between the border of the Internet Explorer page and your border, your element border, you can take like your element as content like thing. Or else you use content only for now is the time as content. If you take now is the time for content, then the space between your element border, black border and the content is the padding, okay? And the external space between the Internet Explorer border and your element border is there, right? Element, okay, you consider element as element only, not the content. Then in that case, the difference between the two borders is there now, that is margin. Here you have equal margin and padding. So the space between the two borders, IE border and your element border is nothing but the margin, and your border and the content is nothing but the padding here. Again, in the below thing, you can see margin as 0.3, means padding has increased. You can observe the two elements here. Okay, the padding is 0.3 and margin is 0.1. Here you can see the margin is reduced, your border and the element border. Okay. This is the main difference you can observe. Now just getting back to our PPT. Sorry for the interruption. Now coming to the padding. So you have seen the clear difference between margin and padding. Margin is nothing but the total browser and your content border and your border, element border. You can consider the difference between both the borders as margin, and between your content border and the content is padding. So background images. So background image property, I will explain you with an example. In tomorrow's class, I will show you all the examples. Background repeat means we can have one image and you can repeat that image in your HTML page with the help of the background repeat property. So the possible values of the background repeat property are possible values. Possible values repeat, no repeat, repeat x and repeat y. You can have your repetition in a x-axis or y-axis, or you don't want to repeat image if you want only a single image. Background position property. You can have the background position of your image as top, center, bottom, left or right. Again, now coming to the shorthand property of the background image, you can have background colon, the image path, repetition and position. If you give it separately a longhand property, then you can have the background image in a separate line, background repeat property and background position. Coming to the span and the div tags. So this we already discussed, like span is an inline element and div is a block level element, and we have also seen the difference between a block level element and an inline level element. So div span is nothing but the inline level element. One problem with the font properties is that they apply to those elements which are often too large. Solution: a new tag to define an element is the content of the larger element. So we can have the span tag here. The default meaning of span is to leave the content as it is. See, now within the p tag you have a text called now is the span, best time and ever. So what happens? Use the span to apply document style sheet to its content. For that particular best time, you can have the property separately within a p tag. So p is a block level element and span is an inline level element. Always remember, inline level element should be wrapped in a block level element, but not the vice versa. Even if you do not wrap it also, it is not an issue, but when you wrap it, you should have the inline level elements within a block level element. Use the span to apply a document style sheet to its content. Okay. Style type is equal to text/css. For example, you have used something like a class called big red, big red. Here you can see they haven't applied any dot before the big red. It is not correct. You should have a dot before the big red. Font size is equal to 24 pt. Again, it is a unit. Font family is equal to Arial. Font family color red. So these are the style you have. Now span class is equal to big red. So within the p tag, you can have a span tag with particular class. It is possible, but the vice versa is not a good practice. Yeah, the document is still loading. Just trying to reload it. So remember, block level elements, it occupies the entire portion of the page like a div tag. Inline level element, it takes only the position of the text where it is, like space where it is exactly. Coming to the conflict resolution. So before the conflict, let us go through some more information about the span and the big tags. Now here you can see the example which we have discussed. Now it is the best time ever. For the best time, that is big red class, you have given a color as red. Okay. So this is applied here. The span tag is similar to other HTML tags. They can be nested and they can have ID and class attributes. Another tag that is useful for style specification, div tag, used to create document sections or divisions for which style can be specified. In your portion of HTML, like piece of HTML code, you can divide like header, content, and the footer. You can have the div tags which can contain other tags like p tags, span tags, etc. For divisions of the page, we generally use this div tag. So example, a section of 5 paragraphs for which you want some particular style. Okay, this is one of the example. Now going through the next slide, coming to here, conflict resolution. When two or more rules apply to the same tag, there are rules for deciding which rule applies. So this is very much important. As I told you before, do not use the inline styles frequently in your pages in a real-time development, because there will be a problem of getting overridden. Properties may be overridden. See here, conflict resolution is one of the such discussions here. So when two or more, for p tag, if you have given an inline style as color red, for same p tag in external style sheet you have given a color as green. So observe what happens. The output will always be the inline style will be the first precedence. Okay, so this will take the first precedence. Like document level, inline style sheets have precedence over the document style sheets. The document style sheets have precedence over the internal or document level. Next comes the external. When the style is applied to a particular pages, the inline style has more precedence when compared to the external style sheet. So it's a best practice. Always use the external style sheet only. Don't go for inline style sheets. When you go for an inline styling, if you give red for the inline style and given a green for external style sheets, then you cannot see the green color. You can have the red color only. So within the same level, there can be a conflict. A tag may be used twice as a selector. A tag may inherit a property and also be used as a selector. Okay. H1 tag you have given a color as red. For same H1 you define a class and given the color like green. So again the conflict arises. For all the H1 tags it will take the color as red only. Okay. Style sheets can have a different sources. The author of a document may specify the styles. The user through browser settings may specify the styles. So the style sheets can have different sources. We can have a different sources as discussed before. You can have an external source, internal and inline source. Individual properties can be specified as important. This important tag I will show you with an example. It's not a best practice to use the important tag. When you use the important tag for a particular style in the external style sheets, it has the higher preference when compared to the other elements. Okay. Individual properties we can be specified as an important. It can be represented by exclamatory mark important. Means it takes highest preference. For two H1 elements, you have a color red and color green within the same external style sheet only, not like internal and external. In external only, you have two H1 tags and it has two different colors. And if you give exclamatory important for one of the H1 tags, it will take the highest preference when compared to the other H1 tag. So precedence rule, from highest to lowest, important declarations with user origin, author origin, normal declarations with author origin, normal declaration with user origin. Any declarations with browser or other user agent origin. See, the precedence rules will always be from highest to lowest. So important declaration means colon exclamatory important declarations you can give it. So normal without the important you can give normally, and any other declaration with the browser also you can give. This we can understand fine with an example. Now coming to the tiebreaker, specificity. So specificity means ID has more preference when compared to the classes and pseudo class selectors. Then comes the contextual selectors. Then comes the general selectors. This is the order which we follow. ID has more preference. Next classes and pseudo classes like hover, for contextual selectors like OL, unordered list, L elements, and general selectors like other tags. So later has the precedence over the earlier. So this will have a precedence when compared to the other elements. So now you can download this PPT from your where I have enabled the downloading here. So in the next session, let us go through some of the examples of CSS properties and other examples. You practice it and get back to me if you have any doubts. Okay, this is for the today's session. I'm just completing the CSS part.